Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How you guys doing? It is what day is it? It's March 11th. It's Thursday. We all know what Thursdays are for. Thursdays are for TheoryCraft, as some people like to say, other than myself, of course. I didn't coin it. Everyone else coined it because you guys are such big fans of the show. We're on episode 9 of TheoryCraft. It's been a little over 2 months now since we started the show, and it's it's a work in progress. We're going, we're moving, we're grooving. Can you guys hear me all right, and can you see me all right? Is everything okay before we get started? My cat is meowing in the background. As soon as I hit live, my cat is freaking out, going to start running around the house, going to start scratching on the door. It's going to be all right. You might hear her in the background. Right 5 left. Appreciate you. 2 months. How you guys doing? How you guys doing? The last episode was an interview with Todd, which was really enjoyable. I really liked it. It was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool to talk to him. And got some nice interviews lined up for the future if everything goes well. They're always a little bit hard to plan, but if everything goes all right, we got some exciting ones in the future. Yeah, my cat's freaking out. That's all right though. That's all right. Yeah, we missed last week because of course I was being the big professional person that I am, and I was casting IEM, which was pretty cool. That was a nice opportunity. Very humbled by it. Learned a lot. So yeah. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. We got a little bit of a change schedule, so I'm going to talk about the schedule to start for the next couple of months. Because we're going to have to miss a couple of episodes. We missed one last week. My cat's clawing at my door. And we're going to miss one at the end of the month as well. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. If my cat keeps clawing at my door, I'll let her in, and then maybe you'll see her jump on the desk. Hopefully the chroma key does not chroma key her out. She isn't green, so it should be all right. But we'll have to see. You did good during DreamHack. Thank you. Dispel. Jeez. I'm gonna let my cat in. 1 sec. Okay, kitty. Come on in. Yeah. Come on in. Don't knock my green screen down. All right. Oh, okay. We got pets. It's not in a studio. I'm at home. I got a cat. All right, let's talk about the schedule for the next couple of months. Boom. We're going to go to the notepad. Let's talk about the schedule. So like I said, we missed last week. That episode's gone. That day is not coming back. Coffee stained pillow? Yeah, it is coffee stained. Because I am not sponsored. I need to get a sponsorship for a chair. So we missed last week, and we're going to miss one at the end of the month because I'm moving. That's why my room is a total mess, but you can't see it because of a green screen. I got boxes all over the place. I'm going to be moving. So here's what the schedule is going to look like way up until the end of April. All right? Boom. March 11th. That's today. Today is Human Day. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. And then next week, we're going to do community replays. You guys know the drill. You can tweet them at me. You can put them in the Discord, the TheoryCraft channel. Didn't you just move? I did move 2 months ago. This place was temporary. Moving again, but that place will be permanent. Yeah, and back to Carson at backtowarcraft.com. You can email me your replays, and that'll be next week. I already got quite a few in the queue. So if you send them to me, we might not get to them. But of course, we're going to have... Hi there. Of course, we're going to have next month as well. We're going to have replays. Come on. My cat's going to join us today. And then April 1st, we'll have Orc Day. Right? Because we're going to miss it this month, of course. And then we'll have Undead Day on April 8th. Then we'll have Community Replays April 15th. April 22nd, we'll have Night Elf Day. And then April 29th, we'll have an interview. And if the interview goes as planned, and if the person who I've talked to shows up, it's going to be a real good interview. I think you guys will enjoy it. So that'll be cool. And of course, we're very lucky because April has 5 Thursdays in it. So show on April Fools, yeah. Maybe I just won't show up for April Fools. Wouldn't that be great for all the orc players? April Fools, your race is toxic, so you guys don't get another show. Your cat is like, he's going insane, talking to himself, and needs company. Yeah. Oh, hi there. She'll end up laying down, right? And then when she gets tired of me, she'll claw me and then she'll run out of the room. So be ready for that. You might see me get shocked, but for now she's just chilling. She's gonna lay down. I'm gonna try not to disturb her too much when I'm trying to do my show. I certainly would hate to disturb her. So that's the schedule. And send me your guys' replays for next week. Like I said, I got a few. I've had a lot of messages recently of like, hey, you want to check out my replay? I'd really appreciate it. So, I appreciate it too. I appreciate you guys sending your replays. And we'll try to get to all of them for next week. All right, cool. Any questions about the schedule? Any questions about the schedule? A little bit janky, but, by the end of April, we'll be back on the regular schedule probably for the rest of the year. I'm hoping. I probably shouldn't need any more Thursdays off because I'll be nice and settled and be good to go. But and maybe I'll post a graphic as well on Twitter. But if you guys forget the schedule, it's right here, right in front of us. Okay, boom, 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 getting rid of that. Which leads me to today. Today is Human Day. Of course, it's the second episode. The first episode. Can anyone remember what the first Human Day episode was? Human players in the chat. Can you remember what it was? What was the first episode? What matchup was it? Did everyone watch it? That was the very first episode we ever did. It had to do with, Sock, Humba. Exactly. It was Sock against Orc. We watched a lot of Northern Isles replays. A couple on Concealed Hill, I think, as well. We're talking about his way he plans the matchup. Human versus Orc. Yeah. Exactly. So this will be Human versus Human today. The title will be the two sides of Breakermere. Can we have a cheese day? We absolutely can. I'll try to plan one in the future. Like I said, there is a couple of months. I think there's 3 months in the year, this year, that have 5 Thursdays. So on one of those 3 months that have 5 Thursdays, I'll take one of the Thursdays and I'll probably do a special day. Like I'm looking to do one maybe on mechanics, like micro and stuff like that. And then one maybe on cheese. I was actually going to do the cheese day on April 1st for April Fools, but with the way the schedule's gone, might not work out. But that's all right. So the two sides of Breakermere. This is probably the most hated matchup and strategy from a spectator point of view. A lot of people dislike Breakermere. So my goal for today's episode is, one, to help the people that spectate Breakermeres enjoy it a little bit more because they may have a bit more in-depth knowledge on how it works and what's going on in the match. Not to say that people that hate it don't understand it, but maybe if you understand a little bit more of the nuances that go in, you might like it more spectating it. Right? It's to help those casual people get it a bit more and get the details and the nitty-gritty, what the timings are, what we're looking for, how to know when someone has an advantage. So I hope to just go over the basic idea of what Breakermere is, what your goals are, what the strategy sort of is outlined with. And then for the people that already understand this, already maybe even like Breakermere themselves, I hope to point out a couple of the nuances, a couple of the intangibles, how I was wording it before. So there's something for everyone here. Because I love Breakermere myself. It's not even something that I've ever understood perfectly either, right? It's just something that I've always kind of liked the idea of it. People tend to dislike it because, the fights are boring. But it's like the fights go on for like 5 minutes. They're really close. They're very micro-intensive. If you ever play a Breakermere yourself, there's a lot of micro that goes into them. So I don't really get it. It's like, the people that don't like Breakermeres, do they want to watch the people creep? Is that what it is? They just want more creeping? Because I think the 5-minute long fights are pretty cool. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But let's start with the question we're all wondering. How can she slap? No. Why breakers? Does anyone know? Why is it? It's breakers and priests, of course, but priests are sort of included in any tier 2 human army. But why did it's always been like this too? Human Mirror has pretty much always going very, very far back. I won't say always to Reign of Chaos, of course, because it was a lot of rifles back then. But even 2004, 2005, we were still seeing Breakermeres. To avoid Clap, Clap has only recently been very strong, right? For Magic Immune, counter MK. right? Can't be clapped, can't be hit by griffins. Breakers are strong against MK because Sorks wreck human, and breakers disable Sorks. That's a very good point. Very good point, because Panda's too strong. Possibly. But let's just look at what the units are. We're going to exclude tier 3 because, of course, we know that there's breaker mirrors on one hand, and then there's tier 3 strategies on the other hand, and both are definitely viable. Tempo play. I like that word tempo. Very good. Because, of course, you can go tier 3 in Human Mirror. It's not as though that's not a viable strategy, but that's a topic for another episode. Today we're talking about both players being on tier 2. Both players, being stuck on tier 2. Why are they going these units, both of them? Why is there no other viable options on tier 2? Right? So let's see. Let's just take a look. These are the viable units, or all of the units, in fact, that human can get on tier 2. Other than priests and breakers. Right? So rifles, Sorks, Dragonhawks, flying machines, footmen, and mortar teams. Did I miss anything? Did I miss any units other than breakers and priests in there? I don't think I did. Don't think I did. If I did, I'll add it to the list. But I think that's everything, right? So rifles. Why aren't rifles viable? Well, of course, because there's defend on footmen, right? And very often you'll get defend even just against the water elementals early. So defend makes it so rifles aren't too good. And of course, breakers will counter rifles too. Right? They do normal damage against medium armor, and then it's piercing against medium. Breakers hard counter rifles. So does defend. They can also be storm bolted, very easy to pick off. Right? Sorks. Why aren't Sorks good on tier 2 in Human Mirror? Well, of course, because of breakers. Because of spell steal. You can't slow without it getting stolen. Typically, you'll see Sorks in Human Mirror in a tier 3 game, because there'll be knights and there won't be typically a lot of breakers, so you can get value from slow. But on tier 2, you can't go Sorks because there's breakers. Dragonhawks, of course, water elementals, not very good. Not very good against water elementals, and what really would you be getting Dragonhawks for? You'll see them again on tier 3 sometimes, when both players go for Griffin Aviaries and Griffins. But on tier 2, what's really the point? Flying machines, the same reason, not really used on tier 2, because what value do you get from them? And water elementals, of course, counter them. Footmen just don't really scale too well. Of course, if you're up against rifles, then you would see, some more defend footmen. But of course, they could be countered by priests for magic damage, slow with magic damage, and they just don't scale too well. And then mortar teams, we'll see those in tier 3 armies, but without fragmentation shards. They're kind of good against the casters, but again, they could be slowed. The water elementals can pick them off. They're just not that good, and it's quite the investment to go into workshop, because, you can't really just mass mortar teams. They'll get some value. Sometimes they're all right, but you'll really only see them on tier 3 because fragmentation shards, and, you tend to have more casters on tier 3. So that's why we end up with 2 units. Everything else is countered. Probably the only viable option out of these units is maybe mortar teams. But you still need to pair the mortar teams with something, right? But, just because of that, you won't see them too often. So you'll see breakers and you'll see priests. That's why. And it just so happens that breakers counter each other. They both do extra damage to each other. Priests are always added in because 1 for dispel, of course, against the water elementals. 2 for heal so that you can creep a lot. And they're just very, very good. Right? Just talking about tier 2. Yeah, we're just talking about tier 2 because, as we established, of course there are tier 3 options. You can go Griffins, you can go Knights, you can go Frag Sharp Mortar teams, Inner Fire Priests. There are options on tier 3 in Human Mirror that players play all the time. Just not the topic of today's episode. Right, so that's why we end up at breakers. Unfortunately for some people, fortunately for people that like the matchup, but this is how we've arrived here, and it's sort of always been this way. There's 2 units that work. And if you're forced to stay on tier 2, you're just going to build those 2 units. Right? Makes sense. That's how we got here. That's how we got here. That's why she slaps. All right. Next question. Now that we know that we're going to build breakers and priests because we've gone over it, we've decided, hi kitty, we've decided those are the units we're going to build. What are some of the general ideas in Breaker Mirror? What are some of the general goals we want to accomplish? What's the first thing we want to accomplish in a human mirror if we're planning to play breakers, or just in general in a human mirror? What's the first thing on our list of goals? Yeah, Ricky, I did that. What's the first thing we want to accomplish? Is this going to green screen out? No, it's actually not. Nice. Sometimes it gets chroma keyed out a little bit. Creep, Expo, level 3 AM, level 2 Aura, all very good points. Don't let opponent go tier 3. Very interesting. We might get into that a little bit. See if opponent expands. Very good as well. Yeah, definitely. We're definitely going to get those footman scouts out just like we should at every matchup. Because, you know, against Orc in the first episode we established, you need to see the tech timing. You know, you need to see if there's a grunt, if there's a barrack, stuff like that. And against Undead, of course, you need to see, is it a Criplord, is it a Death Knight? Against Night Elf, you need to see what the first hero is. You need to see if they're fast expanding. Lots of information. And in Human Mirror, you have to see if they're fast expanding or not. That's what you have to scout for with that footman. So that's a good point. But yes, most of the time, hey Duck, how you doing, man? Most of the time, the first thing we want to accomplish is level 3 Archmage in Human Mirror. That's just always, so it really simplifies the early game for us. So the first thing we want to do if we want to get level 3 Archmage, as I'll put this in here, is we just want to optimize our creep route, which can make Human Mirror very fun because, and we'll talk about this when we get into the replays, but you know, it's really simple. You just figure out what is the best way, the fastest way, the most efficient way, you know, bar spending all my lumber, to get level 3 on the map. So it actually is very entertaining because you can practice against the computer. If the apocalypse came and we were the only people left on Earth, we could still practice Human Mirror because we could still practice our opening level 3 creep route with our Archmage. And that's something you could do all day. You lose internet, as I do all the time. I lose internet. What are you going to practice? You can practice your creep route. Get it 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds quicker, and that's going to make a very big difference. Of course, it'll make a big difference in every matchup, but especially in Human Mirror. Because getting that level 3 Archmage allows you to go to the next phase of the game. And what's the second phase of the game after we get level 3 Archmage? What's the second phase? What's the second thing we want to accomplish? Now we've got our level 3. Now we've got a level 3. Human OP can win with no internet. Yeah, of course that. Of course. What's the second thing? Get level 10 MK. Harass. Kill peasants. Soul Glider, what's up, buddy? Kill peasants is good. Yeah. There's 2 things we could do here. It's a little bit of a trick question. But yeah, you know, I would call it, what did I call it? Pressure their base, which could be potentially pressuring their expansion if that's what they're going for, pressuring their main base, canceling their Arcane Tower, you know, pressuring their footmen, trying to get those footy numbers lower, stop expansion, delay tier 2 buildings. Yeah, there's a lot of things we can do, which is essentially can be generalized as just pressuring your opponent. That is good. That's good as a second thing. But what else could we do after level 3 Archmage? I'll put this in here because this is correct. What else can we do here at this phase in the game? There's one other thing. There's one other thing. If anyone's keen in Human Mirror, human players, I'm looking to you. You'll know this. What is it? It's a tough one. This is a tricky one. Gold star to anyone who can get this. What else can we do? We've got level 3 Archmage. We're looking for a second thing to do. What can we do? Other than pressuring their base or pressuring their creeping or doing something that's interactive with the opponent. Heal scroll will be a little bit early by then if your creep is very efficient. Ooh, steal creep camps. Good, Soul Glider, you're getting there. That is correct. That's part of it. Steal creeps on enemy side. That's right. That's right. Expand, scout, get level 4 Archmage. Good job, buddy, in the chat. Good stuff. Level 5 AM. Let's not go that far. Let's not get crazy. Let's not get crazy. Yeah, level 4 Archmage. Good. Good, 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 good. Why is level 4 Archmage all right? It's probably, I might be wrong, destroy shop. Cool, that's a little cool play you can do, but that's still pressuring their base, pressuring your opponent. Let's see if this will fit. Or level 4 Archmage. Yeah, I think this is the only matchup where you can literally assuming that your opponent isn't doing anything very greedy, like fast expanding or, teching without a tower, stuff like that. Because in that case, you should always go and pressure their base, of course. But if your opponent is playing relatively safe, they're not doing anything overly greedy, you can just creep level 4. There's no other matchup, I think, where you can just straight up creep your first hero level 4. I might be wrong there, but I don't think. But yeah, if you get level 4 Archmage, you get, of course, level 2 Aura. What can you do with level 2 Aura? Well, you get, more mana on your Mountain King, your Archmage, your Priests, of course, for Dispel, your Breakers for Control Magic, potentially Spell Steal, but not too often. Warden, yeah, Warden, but typically, when you get level 3 on a Warden, you're going to go do something on their side of the map. Seldom will you actually just get level 3 Warden and be like, I'm just going to creep a little bit more. Most of the time, you're going to go over to the human or the undead's side of the map and either kill acolytes or kill peasants, pressure and expansion. Very few times will you just continue to creep, right? You will eventually go back and creep more, but not before doing something. Whereas, in Human Mirror, you might just keep creeping. Ideally, you would be creeping on your opponent's side of the map, stealing camps away from them if possible, but still creeping nonetheless. Right, so that's another option you can do. Okay, what's the next thing we're going to do? We got level 3 Archmage, we pressured their base, or we stole some camps away from their side of the map. What's the next thing we're going to do? Really basic, really basic. Really basic. What is it? So fun you can practice alone, exactly. Yeah, how fast can you get level 4 Archmage? Tweet at me. Tweet at me. What's your level 4 Archmage speed run? Second hero? Good. Yeah, pretty basic. MK level 3, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah. Creeper MK, double Sanctum second hero. Thank you. Yes. Really basic. Just getting our tier 2 up and running. Building our Mountain King, and getting our double Arcane Sanctum for our Breakers and our Priests, because we've already established those are the units that we can go on tier 2. Very good. Very good. And then, this is where it gets a little bit complicated if you're not a human player. Maybe if you're a beginner, this is something that maybe you don't know perfectly when and why you do it. But we'll spend a little bit of time on this. What is now step 4, everybody? Step 4. Human players in the chat, I'm expecting you to know this. Expecting you to know this. And you, of course, can go for Panda as well, but we're going to touch on this afterwards. So don't worry, Panda fans. Smithy, old school, we're going to get to that, but not for now. Expo, of course. And when are we going to Expo? What is the timing? There's a very specific timing that is very consistent, which can change because, of course, we might be getting pressured. We might be pressuring them. We might be out of position. We might not be able to creep our expansion. There's a very specific timing that most standardly you'll expand at. And it's when something is being built from one of these Arcane Sanctums. Yeah, you're going to expand when Dispel's researching. You'll get your first 2 Priests, and then you'll get your 3rd Priest. While you're building this, your other Arcane Sanctum will build Dispel. When this Dispel is researching, that's typically when you're going to be expanding. There's, of course, nothing is this simple, right? Nothing is, the game would be too easy if things were this simple, but that's typically the timing. There's, of course, always nuance to these things. Oh, my cat's getting out. She's getting up. Okay. Yeah. So expansion after 3 Priests and Dispel, typically. And I actually, just a little aside here, I was coaching a human player about maybe 8 months ago, right? And he had a gym newbie league match, and it was going to be a human mirror, and he wanted me to go over some human mirror stuff with him. And we got this far of me going over some stuff about Breaker Mirror with him, and then we got to the expansion. And I was like, wait, I don't know when you're supposed to expand. I have no idea. So I asked Cruncher. And he gave me a very good piece of advice, very simply. I was like, when are you supposed to expand at tier 2 and Breaker Mirrors? And he said, he didn't say this Dispel thing. He said something else which made a lot more sense. When your Mountain King comes out, you creep 1 medium-sized camp, and then you go to your expansion. And by then, you'll have enough lumber and gold to get the expansion up. Really simple. You just creep 1 medium-sized camp with your Mountain King, and then you go creep the expansion, or then you go build the expansion. And it just so happens that works out to be right around your Dispel's research coming up. Right? Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So there's a little tip from your old pal Cruncher. And that's how I learned the timing too, because I didn't even know. I didn't even know, but he told me, and now I know. And now I know. Okay, and then the fifth and final step before we get into the wacky mid-late game sort of stuff. What's the fifth and final step? We got our, say, level 4 Archmage. We got our Mountain King out with, Priests and Breakers coming up. Level 3 Mountain King. Our expansion's up and safe. What's the next step? The fifth and final step. What is it? And a very important one. Not one to be overlooked. How about Shredder? We're gonna see some Shredders today, but we're gonna see them for specific reasons. Upgrades. Thank you guys. Very good. Very good. Upgrades. You guys are on point today. Gold stars for everyone. Yep. So after our expansion gets up, we're gonna build those blacksmiths, and we're gonna pump out those 2/2 upgrades. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. This is very basic and simplified, lacking nuance, of course. There's going to be much more stuff. Sometimes we're not even going to expand, but that's what today's episode is for. It's to show the people that don't understand this matchup generally what we're going to look at, and the people that do understand the matchup, we're going to go into a little bit more detail on the nuance of these 5 steps. Right? Makes sense? Makes sense? Do. Which leads me, now we know, the breaker part. We know the breaker mirror part. But what's the other part of the title? Mango, 2, 3, 4. Appreciate it. Tier 2. Tier 2? Tier 2 for 10 months. My man, appreciate it, dude. Over 50/50 before upgrades. You'll typically pump them like as soon as that blacksmith comes up. So your expansion is secured. You'll build the blacksmith, and then you'll pump them regardless of upkeep or not. Where are the griffs? For a different episode. What was I getting at? Yeah, so that leads me to the last part of the title, the 2 sides, which is a little bit clickbaity, a little bit like I was just trying to have a spicy title, the 2 towers, the 2 sides of Breaker Mirror. But still, we're going to touch on this. What might the 2 sides be? What might the 2 sides be? Very generally, what is typically one player doing and the other player doing, the yin, the yang, the flip side. One player is always doing one thing, the other player is always doing the other thing. Sometimes they're both doing one thing at the same time, and then we get into weird games. Boom, 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 boom. Little bit of a tough question, but let's see. What are the 2 sides? Creep and harass. Interesting. Yeah, that is right. That is right, but I put it into a little bit of a different word. Old school, my man, yet again, my man. Good stuff. Attack, defend, attacking, defending. Dragon Blue also got it. Everyone got it. Very good. Good versus evil. Nice. Nice. One losing and one winning. Yes. So yeah, I call it one player's being the defender and one player's being the aggressor. Right? And the interesting thing about this is, it's not always true that, both players are locking into these roles. There's always going to be one defending. There's always going to be one being aggressive. Sometimes both players will be defensive. Sometimes both players will be aggressive. We've all seen those breaker mirrors where, both players creep level 3. They get the first step done, and they go into the second step. They both go into each other's bases, kill every single peasant, and then it ends up being a base race before they ever reach tier 2, before they ever got to another step in the game. That is an example of both players choosing to play aggressive. Right? We've all seen that. Right? It's not very common. It's common at my level because everyone just sort of runs into the base as soon as they get level 3 because we don't know what else to do. Jaeger. Is that Jaeger? Jaeger? Appreciate it. Thank you, man. 7 months. What's up? How you doing? Right? We've all seen those. And what would be an example of both players being the defender? Well, the best example is honestly a lot of Infi versus TH games. Hey, we got a hype train, guys. Corbin? Yeah, Corbin Monoxide. Cool name. With the Prime. Appreciate it. Infi versus TH games, they're both very defensive players. And we'll go into why that is a little bit. But, they both just creep. Maybe even they creep level 4. They both expand. They both safely get their expansions up. And then eventually they meet and they'll fight somewhere. But they're both very passive players because they both have a lot of respect for each other. So when we see Infi versus TH both in their prime play, they typically both play very passive, honestly. But sometimes we'll have the games where they're both aggressive. Ooh, are we going to watch Infi TH? Unfortunately, I couldn't find any Human Mirror replays of either of them because they both very rarely play Human Mirror, and Infi's, of course, been playing random. I had the replays from the most recent tournament, DreamHack, but Infi didn't play Human Mirror. He only played Undead against Human. So we unfortunately have no Infi or TH replays, but we do have very good replays for today. I wish I looked for them. But we just couldn't find them. And then, so we have an example of when both players are the aggressor, when both players are the defender, and then, of course, is very often when one player will be very aggressive, one player will be very defensive. Which has the advantage? What is better? Being the defensive player in Human Mirror or being the aggressive player in Human Mirror? What's better? What do you guys think is better? This is, not a black or white question. Being the Sonic. Defender, aggro. See, we have some disagreements in chat. I love it. Aggressive Pog. I'm a very aggressive player in Human Mirror. What's an example of a very defensive player in Human Mirror? Well, all memes aside, Mr. Winner is a very defensive player in Human Mirror. We've all seen him, if you're aware of his play. He gets like 3-4 towers in Human Mirror and goes tier 3, which isn't Breaker Mirror. Soft Ice Cream, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man? He's a very defensive player in Human Mirror. He gets a lot of towers. Muted? I'm not muted. Yeah. So there's examples of players that play a lot, and Mr. Winner, isn't a top player, but he's a very defensive player. Yeah, so we had some disagreements on what was better and what was worse. Well, let's take, for example, each stage of the game. Getting Archmage level 3, pressuring their base or creeping Archmage level 4, MK 2 Sanctums expansion, and then the Blacksmith, which let's ignore the 5th step for now. Just those first 4 steps. This is where it gets a little bit interesting because now we have a choice. There's these goals we need to accomplish in game, right? In Breaker Mirror, if we had this agreement with our opponent that we're both going to play this standard tier 2 game, which isn't always true, but very typically it will be. Now we have the option, at this stage of the game, do we choose to be the aggressor or the defender? It isn't always our choice, but there's still room to do both, to play into the hand of both. So for instance, there are creep routes when you're going to level 3 Archmage to take our first step right there, where we can creep and we can end up on our opponent's side of the map and try to take an aggressive camp while militia creeping on our side and try to pop level 3 right outside their base and then go straight into their base. There are also creep routes where we'll be back at home ready to defend as soon as we hit level 3, and we'll have our footmen in position to defend our base and to try to get a favorable trade. Right? Of course, the more defensive option for the second step, would be creeping level 4 Archmage, and the more aggressive would be immediately going to their base when we get level 3. Right? An aggressive option for the MK and 2 Sanctums would, of course, be getting a Panda instead of an MK and going straight across their map and trying to kill a lot of peasants. And the more defensive option would be just getting an MK trying to creep that one camp and then going to an expansion. What would be, for our 4th step, expansion after 3 priests plus dispel, what would be the aggressive option? Of course, the expansion would be the defensive option because getting an early expansion like that is just, intrinsically defensive. What would be the aggressive option of that 4th step? What would be that option? What would be that option? Very simple. Very simple. Kick his expo, jacking opponent's expo creep, scout pick a fight, creep jack. Yeah, very good. Very typically, it'll be like, I'm just not going to expand, right? I'm just not going to expand, and I'm going to go pressure your expansion and all in, which we will see today. We'll see an all in on expansions. Right, and then Blacksmith 2-2 upgrades, whatever. But I will say, if you're the player not expanding, when you don't expand and you're being you're pressuring more towards your opponent's expansion, You have more lumber because you haven't invested the resources in that expansion. You can get your blacksmith earlier and get those expansions earlier. So being the aggressive player does typically mean you'll get those upgrades earlier. So there's an aggressive and a defensive option for all the main steps of the Breaker Mirror. And whether or not you do one or the other, there isn't one right and one wrong option. There's just, this is how I'm deciding to play based on the information I have, based on how the game has gone thus far. Right? So there ends up being, you take this very, what people call a boring matchup, where they're just doing the same thing and the fights are 5 minutes long and it's, I don't know who's ahead, I don't know who's behind. And now all of a sudden you have these steps and you have many nuanced options within these steps to choose from. Kind of cool, right? Kind of cool. So there's a lot of nuance. Now, I did ask a question before, who has the advantage for all of these steps? Well, I would say there isn't actually a right and wrong answer for who has the advantage. It would depend on the game, but there must be a reason why the most standard thing you do is expand both players, right? Right? There must be a reason. Why is it standard for both players to have this agreed upon tier 2 expansion very early? You could almost call it greedy. Why is it that Infi and TH both go for this early tier 2 expansion and don't decide to just, I'm just going to all in my opponent's expansion because he was so greedy with this early tier 2 expo? Right? Because it's not the standard choice. If pressuring your opponent's expansion worked 100% of the time, then you can realize that the expansion would just never be part of the meta in the first place, because the person expanding would just die to the person all-inning. So it would never reach that point in the meta if there wasn't something better about the expansion, about the defensive option when it comes to that step. Right? So what is it about the expansion that's better for the defender than the aggressor on that expansion? There's a couple of things. One is pretty obvious, and I'm sure one of you guys will get it very early. The other one you might not understand fully. Don't have enough mass yet. Getting tier 3. Proximity, priest timing, arcane towers. Yeah. Team Hearthstone, France. Appreciate you. 6 months primer. What's up? I appreciate all the subs, guys. Really nice of you. Thank you. Yeah, the biggest thing is not militia, although that is a big thing. So let's point out the not biggest things. Yeah. Of course, militia, arcane towers, proximity to shops, ability to position better because you're the one building that sim city at your expansion. You can position around it and have a good fighting position. Right? But the main thing is, because the fights are so long in Breaker Mirror, these fights can very often, I exaggerate and say 5 minutes because people are like, oh, the fight's going forever, it's so boring. But they can very often go for 2.5, 3 minutes. Right? Very often go on for 2.5, 3 minutes. What gives the defending player a huge advantage in very long fights? Of course, the rally points. The rally points. Defender's advantage for the Arcane Sanctum rally points. So you can imagine you're the guy attacking. You have 2 breakers coming across the map. It takes those breakers 30 seconds to walk across the map. So every time 2 breakers come out of both Arcane Sanctums, 30 seconds. Whereas when you're the defender, 5 seconds. So that's every 25 out of 30 seconds, you have a 6 supply advantage. So essentially, you always have a 6 supply advantage as the defender, which is a big deal. So there's this defender advantage because the fights go on for so long. You constantly have the supply advantage as the defender. Whereas in Orkmir, you're not really pumping too many units. You'll typically be stuck on 50 supply. You won't have the expansion, so you won't be breaking upkeep. You'll be spending a lot of your gold on items, and even the attacking player has items as well. So you won't have this huge defender's advantage. There is still this in other mirrors, always. But it's just much more prevalent in Breaker Mirror because of how long the fights go on for. Right? Because of how long the fights go on for. So that's why we've arrived at why expanding is actually the optimal play. And that's why it's the standard play. But of course there are other options. So now we know why breakers. How does she slap? what the main steps are of Breaker Mirror, what we should be looking out for, and why there's this expansion. Because if you play this on ladder, you might be thinking, why am I even expanding? I'm just copying Infi and TH. They're so good, they do it all the time, but I'm just dying every time I go for an expansion. Well, that may be true, but that does not mean that it's the worst of the two options. It is the better of the two options. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? That was kind of a long intro. 40-minute long intro. Wow. Wow, wow, wee, wow. Incredible. And I appreciate it, Exornix, but I got my replays sorted out. I do appreciate it. Not sure if I understand. If you expand early on tier 2 is a 700 gold investment into an expansion. Yeah. 700 gold expo. Investment into the expo. Yeah. Does that make up for the defender's advantage? I don't think so. I don't think so. Because again, I restate. If the expansion on tier 2 was an option that just allowed you to die to an all-in from your opponent, that would not be the standard play. Right? That would not be the standard play. So there has to be something intrinsic about the defender's advantage of the expansion that makes it better than being the attacker. Or else we would just see Breaker Mirrors where it's one base against one base. And this early tier 2 expansion would not even be part of the meta. Right? But we're going to see some people be very aggressive on the expansion today. We're going to watch some replays of that. Do. All right. I'm going to close my door because my cat has now left. And we're going to jump into replay 1. All right. We're good. Oh, okay. You guys ready? You guys ready? Put notes on a piece of paper today. But those notes are gone now. All right. Let's do it. Do I need anything? Nope. Okay, so replay 1 is going to be Sock against Fortitude on Northern Isles. All right. Boo, 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 boo. All right. So I got a couple things to show you. First of all, I'm going to do this now. Thanks to Ark for telling me to do that. This will just tell us where we are in the replays. You know, if people come in late. So the red is what replay we're on. And then we're going to go through 3 replays today. All right, so that's what we're going to see. And of course, we always have our notes. Those are just what we went over before, the 5 steps that we're going to be typically seeing in the most standard of Breaker Mirrors. Of course, can be broken. Of course, there's aggressive and defensive options for all these steps. And there's a lot of nuance that we'll, try to go into a little bit of. But, that's the most standard way people play it. Okay. Replay 1. Here is Sock. And here is Fortitude. So, our first step we talked about. Level 3 Archmage. Level 3 Archmage. So, there's a lot of creativity that can go into this. There's a lot of different creep routes. I watched a bunch of replays of Human Mirror from a lot of top players, and I saw many different creep routes on actually every map. There is a, what appears to be the best opening creep route on this map that we're going to see both players do. Does anyone in the chat know what the best opening creep route on Northern Isles to get the quickest possible level 3 is? Does anyone know? Because these are the sorts of things we want to be thinking about early in Human Mirror. How do we achieve this level 3 Archmage as efficiently as possible? It's not like Human against Orc where we're going to try to get an early tech, right? And we want to not use as, too much lumber to get it. Here, we're not worried about the investment of militia time. We're not worried about delaying our tech by a little bit. We're not worried about if we even have to build a 4th farm. We're just worried about getting level 3 as early as possible. Orange 3x green. Yeah, that is an option that we see very typically. Yep. Tusk camps and then 2 greens. You would have to creep this as well with the Tuskar camp to get level 3. So you could do the Tuskar, boom, 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 and that would be level 3. Typically, this will be done with militia, of course. But the most standard is to take the Tuskar, then to creep this, and then to call militia and go for the lab. That's the most standard, and that's what we're going to see both players go for. But there is lots of room for creativity in this, and I encourage human players out there to mess around with your level 3 routes on every map, because Human Mirror is very much a matchup where you can try some stuff out. So we're going to see both players creep this beautifully. 6 militia being called, I believe, or is that 5? I think 6 should be called. Yeah, there's the 6, the straggler. Fortitude's going to creep this a little bit sloppily, but that's alright. He's still going to creep it up to par, up to speed. There's a level 2. One thing I saw Hawk do, actually, recently, as we see the footmen, of course, these footmen, as we mentioned before, we want to see if our opponent's fast expanding. So these footmen is very crucial to see that, but these footmen can also be used to try to delay the creeping. If you can delay them from calling militia, you know, if you can maybe kill one of the peasants, it's all good things. So this footman is used to scout, but also if you can delay this level 3 with the footman at all, that's all gravy. That's great. But what I saw Hawk do recently is after he crept that initial Tuskar camp, he waited for one full return of lumber on these peasants before calling them to the lab, and that allowed him to get a very early tech advantage. But not too important. We're just going to see Sock call militia right away. We're probably going to see Fortitude do the same, but he took a little bit of extra damage. And now this footman is going to punish it. What's this footman going to do for Sock? Well, because he's pressuring these low peasants, not only is he distracting Fortitude, but he's also delaying the militia call by a little bit. So he's going to get a little bit further ahead on his creeping. Yeah, Sock is always very good at being very efficient. And this isn't a small detail. This is a very big deal for Sock that he's this much ahead. We're going to see this translate into an advantage early game. Just being a little bit faster. Let's see. So he just finished. And now Fortitude is what? About 10 seconds slower, which is a very big deal. But let's imagine even he's 5 seconds slower. So let's unpause. We'll count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right? Let's imagine he's done the creep by now. Look where Sock is. He's already about to be in the middle of the map. Okay, by the time Fortitude's done this creep, he would be running away from here. And Sock would already be in the middle of the map. What does this force Fortitude to be? It forces him to be the defensive player during the second stage of the game. The second stage of the game. Already, just because Sock was 5 seconds faster, although he's a little bit more in this case, so it even accentuates that advantage more so. Now gives Sock the option. He's not forced to be the aggressive one, but it gives him the option. Do I want to be the proactive aggressive one, or do I want to be the defensive one? He could come over here and take a camp aggressively, right? He could try to maybe pressure some peasants. He could go straight into the main base if he wanted to, cancel this tower potentially. It gives Sock all the cards in his hands just because he was a little bit faster. So that just shows the importance of being as efficient as Sock, right? Or at least more efficient than your opponent. This is just all because his creeping was faster. And he doesn't have to be aggressive, I reinstate. He does not have to be aggressive here. He has other options. But he has the options. Whereas Fortitude, he's kind of got to defend his base, because if he were to march straight across the map, by the time he was, like, say, right here, maybe, Sock would already be in his base, and that would give Sock, you know, that 5 to 10 second extra time to kill peasants, right? So that's where being efficient comes into play. Very important. Very important. Boots of Speed is going to be great, I imagine. Yep, that's what we're going to see. Just look how big of an advantage he has. Practice your creeping, ladies and gentlemen. Practice your creeping. And look. Fortitude, forced to be the defensive one. It's not terrible he's the defensive one if he defends well, but he still is forced into one option. Archmage is going to cancel that tower. Could even potentially kill a couple of peasants. But Sock isn't overcommitting, right? He's trying to do a couple of things at the same time. He's not overcommitting. He sent one water elemental in, he canceled the tower, he got one peasant, but he's not just going to blindly commit all of his footmen in. Because you don't want to lose all your footmen early just to kill a couple of peasants. That's something I see very often, you know, myself included, lower level human players do in Human Mirror. They just, most people would just commit all their footmen into this base right now, not care if they lose 4 or 5 of them, just try to kill as many peasants as possible. But against a player of Fortitude's caliber, more often than not, you're going to lose more footmen than you kill peasants. So Sokka's going to kill a couple of peasants, and then he's going to take a camp aggressively. So he's still being the aggressive one, he's still being the proactive one, but he's doing something else. He's getting close to that level 4 Archmage. All good things. All good things. Fortitude bought a staff. He's going to staff in. Maybe going to get a couple of footmen. So this creep is not free. 1 footman going to go down. 2 footmen going to go down. I have a question for you guys. What does losing these footmen do? If one player loses a bunch of footmen in the early game, and another player does not, what does losing these footmen do? What does it do? There's a couple of things. Say, for instance, you both build 7 footmen, something 6 to 8 footmen, most typically 7 in Human Mirror. Say one person loses 5, the other person loses 0. So now it's 2 footmen against 7. What does that do? Experience advantage, of course. It will give you a early level 4 Archmage if you're the one killing the footmen. Slows down the MK creeping and the expansion. Yes, it slows down the Mountain King's creeping and the speed at which you're able to start building that expansion. We'll switch to the aggressor. Very cool. Yeah. It leaves the player with less footmen open to aggression. It stops them from being able to be the proactive aggressive one because you have no forces. Forces you to be the defensive one, and then the person with the footman advantage can choose, do I want to just creep faster than you, or do I want to pressure? And if you're pressuring your opponent's expansion and you have a 5 footman advantage, a 10 supply advantage, it's not a small one. It's not a small one. So yeah, it's a very big deal, not just for creeping speed, but also for just, you know, what options you have strategically. Kind of cool. So these 2 footman kills, although Sok got a camp for them, 2 footman kills, if it ends up turning into 4 or 5, it can be a big advantage for Fortitude in the long run. So this camp was not free. Footmen sometimes feel free, they feel throwaway, but in Human Mirror, they can give you a lot of options, just keeping them alive. Pretty cool. All right, here we go. So 2 footmen go down, but Sok is getting close to level 4 Archmage. Actually, they both are, in fact, so the footmen giving more experience than they seem to. Maybe even a 3rd footman could go down, but it's going to take a lot of chasing. But not the end of the world, because Staff of Teleportation is great. Very good. A couple of footmen saved to the back. Fortitude has lost no footmen yet, but he does have a couple of low ones. But again, Sok is the aggressive one because his creeping was 5 seconds faster, 10 seconds faster.
A player's forces are under attack.
Wait, why is this? 1 sec. All right, we're back. And nothing is fixed, but that's all right. The heroes are backwards. And there's no way to fix it, but that's all right. Okay, so we're going to see how many footmen are lost. Both players going to be aggressive.
A player's forces are under attack.
This Archmage is very close to level 4 for Sok. The tier 2 is finished. As we pointed out, Double Arcane Sanctum Mountain King is going to be out. Here's the Mountain King. And the Mountain King is on the way out. Fortitude had a little bit of a tech advantage. That's just because he waited a little bit to call the militia to creep this lab earlier. Just a small detail, not going to be a big deal in the long run. Sok is doing something nice. He's going to steal away 1 camp. Yeah, all the heroes are swapped. Well, I don't think, is everything swapped? Maybe the names are entirely. Nope, the resources aren't swapped. I don't know, bro. I don't know. Oh well. That's very weird. I've never had that before.
A player's
Archmages are going to get a little bit of value. Any footman kills here are great. Any peasant kills here are great because that'll delay, you know, what they're assuming to be an expansion in the future. It'll probably be fixed for the next replay. Don't worry, it'll probably be fixed for the next replay. Still no footman losses for Fortitude, so it's very nicely done so far. This is going to be a TP. A little bit of an overcommitment. Can you get a footman kill, though, Sock? No, you can't. So now is 5 footmen. 2. Oh, okay, 1 did fall in the end. 5 footmen to 4, but Sock also overproduced. Fortitude only built 5 in total, and Sock built 7 in total. Now, because there was so much delay from these Archmages, you know, that one camp we were talking about earlier that you may see people creep before going for their expansion, you don't need to do it anymore because there was so much delay by these Archmages. So here goes Sock creeping his expansion. Fortitude has the luxury, kind of interesting, that Sock stole his expansion earlier. Lost 2 footmen for it, we remember we pointed it out. So now he can, instead of creeping the expansion, he can take this camp aggressively. This allows him to have a position on the map that is very proactive. He also gets a nice camp, and he can also expand while being the aggressive one, so he doesn't have to worry about creeping this. So Sock almost kind of did him a favor by stealing this camp away earlier. Kind of interesting, right? Kind of interesting.
A player's forces are under attack.
So now Fortitude is the one who has the option to be the aggressor at this stage of the game. Level 2 Mountain Kingaroo. Both Archmages are about to be level 4. Lightning Shield would have been very good earlier on, but, you know, just going to be sold now. Maybe didn't even have to be sold, but there's going to be Dispel for both players already, so totally fine. Alright, both players expanding. Expanding, expanding. But as we pointed out, Fortitude was already aggressive on the map because his expansion was crept earlier. So now he's the one who's able to be proactive. A lot of Dispel. Bolts will kill priests. Nice bash. Both players relatively even on footman numbers, so no player had a huge advantage here, but, you know, Fortitude did have a lot more priests because he had the tech advantage. So he had a couple more. And as we see, this is translating into him kind of winning the fight. Kind of winning the fight. And now, with his position, he's going to be able to kill some peasants, which is going to be great. And we're going to see something kind of ridiculous happen here. Just a little bit ridiculous. Just a little bit ridiculous. Oh, is it going to finish? Is it going to finish? Is it going to finish? And this is what happens when you're the proactive one on the map. When you're the one with the map control. When you're the one who's able to be a little bit faster by about 5-10 seconds. All it took was Fortitude being just a little bit on the map as opposed to creeping his expansion. And what does it translate into? Well, not always that big of a gain, but just because he's the one that's able to be in Sock's face as opposed to the other way around, look at the advantage he's gaining now. Look at the advantage he's gaining now. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Back to the replay. A couple of footmen were split off, but they're going to be dealt with by the priest. Pretty nicely done by Fortitude. And this could be canceled, but there's all it takes is 1 peasant, 1 smack. So yeah, pretty big advantage was gained. Yeah, a couple of mistakes from Sock, of course. A couple of mistakes to get to this point. As I said, you're not always, just because you're out on the map 5 seconds earlier, it doesn't mean you're going to get this big of an advantage. A couple of mistakes were taken, but you're still going to get at least a couple of peasants, right? Definitely going to get a couple of peasants. And it doesn't matter if you don't get anything if you're Fortitude, right? Because you're not all in the expansion. You're, of course, counter-expanding. Right, so it doesn't matter. He could have killed 1 peasant here. He could have killed 20 peasants here. It's not an all-in. You know, so any advantage he gains is great. Because his expansion is safely coming up at home. Why is his expansion safely coming up at home? Because he is the one being aggressive, and he continues to be the one being aggressive. Zeppelin is great in Human Mirror. Get a Zeppelin in Human Mirror, in Breaker Mirror specifically. Get a Zeppelin, micro it, save your priest, dodge bolts. Good things. Very good. One thing I should point out as well, the expansions are up, so I expect to see a blacksmith. No blacksmith yet from Sock. But, okay. There it is. Why does Fortitude have the upgrade advantage soon? Well, because he killed more peasants. The lumber was hurting. The peasant count was hurting for Sock, so he couldn't actually build it. How many does he have at home? Okay, he's rebuilt a few at home. He's got 4, so he could build it now, but before, because he had to reinvest into trying to get this expansion up, he lost 5 peasants. He couldn't get the blacksmith up. I do expect him to build it very soon, however. But yeah, this advantage not only translated into a little bit of a gold advantage, 700, not small, but also is going to translate into an upgrade advantage, probably about 1-1 to 0-0 by the time Sock's blacksmith starts pumping. So pretty big advantage for Fortitude. Is there any reason the blacksmith is positioned there? I imagine he just built it in the middle of a fight and just like threw it down. But yeah, there's no particular reason, I would say. Zeppelin, pretty good. This is a little bit ridiculous. Again, these things happen. Nice bash. Level 4 Archmage dead. Still a 1 fight for Fortitude, though. 1 as in Sock is the one backing off, not as in he traded favorably by losing that Archmage. Just as in Sock is not fighting anymore. Nice bash, though. Nice bash. Breakers are about to be 1-1. The Zeppelin, see? Look how good a Zeppelin is, guys. Look how good it is. It's very much a tug of war, this matchup. Very much a tug of war. But currently, Fortitude is winning it. He's got a 5 supply advantage. He's got an upgrade advantage. He's got a priest advantage. They both are close to being level 5 Archmage, so the hero advantage not really there. And thank God it's not there because the heroes are backwards. Going in, killing some more peasants. All good things. Oh, we're gonna see some thunder. We're gonna see some thunder. Dispels of Zeppelin may be dealt with. Okay, it is finally dealt with. Level 5 Archmage is great. Will we see level 3 Aura? We will see level 3 Aura. For the same reasons we love to see level 4 Archmage early on. Ping pong and water elementals. You know, people say these fights aren't exciting, but a lot of micro does go into these fights. They're not easy at all. You got to keep your Mountain Kings out of position of the bolt. You got to, you know, focus fire with the breakers. The priest can't be too far forward. A lot of things. There's a far forward priest. It's dead. A lot of micro goes into these fights. As I pointed out, a 1-1 upgrade against 1-0. So the blacksmith has been built back at home for Stocky Boy. But he's still going to be down by probably 2 upgrades. See? There's the second attack upgrade. Pops. Still a 2 upgrade advantage. Why does he have that? Because he killed some peasants early on during the expansion. 2-2 will probably be upgraded soon. Maybe it even finished. No, it didn't finish, but...
A player's forces are under attack.
Both players going to creep their red camps. Why control magic the elementals? Always see them dispelled? You know, that's a good question. I personally like to dispel them. But, you know, as you can see, a lot of the priests are being focused down right away. You sort of always have mana on your breakers. You don't always have mana on your priests, and you don't always have high priest numbers. Right, so stealing them can sometimes be a bit easier. And, you know, If your opponent isn't on point with the Dispel, stealing them can be nice as well. Both players creeping there. Red camps. Sock did not creep his orange. Why didn't Sock creep his orange? Ooh. Why didn't he creep his orange? Why didn't he creep his orange? Well, of course, he's got level 5 Archmage as Mountain King. Whatever. But this is kind of cool. He skips out on creeping this camp that would have been easy to creep. It gives you 2 items. It could have given him a Claws. It could have given him, you know, Illusion. Something like that, which might be nice for some more Dispels. But he's not doing it because now he's going to be the one out on the map. He's going to be the one on the map. He's going to be the one that can finally take the fight to Fortitude's expansion. Kind of cool. So he's going to be a little bit faster. Because he's a little bit faster, now the next fight will be at Fortitude's Expo. Because most typically in Breaker Mirrors, we're always going to see fights at expansions. Because the idea of gaining an advantage in Breaker Mirror, you gain an advantage through pushing their base, through killing peasants, through taking fights, through forcing your opponent to defend, stuff like that. You know? So in order to gain an advantage, he's got to come across the map. He's got to try to deal some damage to this expansion. He's got to try to kill it. He's got to try to kill peasants. All those good things, right? So he's going to be the one who has the opportunity, more so, to gain an advantage just because he crept a little bit faster. Pretty neat, pretty neat. By the way, what aura did he get? He did get Warsong Battle Drums. Pretty neato. Legion Doomhorn, arguably the best item in Breaker Mirror. Maybe someone would disagree, but yeah. As I said, now the opportunity is in Sock's hands. He's going to try to kill the tower. He's going to try to kill peasants as well. Priests are really out of position.
The town is under siege.
Ba-boom. Went for a surround, didn't land it. Priests are dying all over the place. And again, if there's a water elemental here killing all the peasants, this fight isn't really meaningless. They're gonna trade 1-for-1 units, you know. They're gonna both lose a priest every single time there's a bolt, but if Sock can manage to kill all these peasants during the fight, then, you know, trading 1-for-1 is great for him. Just a battle of micro. They both were relatively even supply, and they're both relatively even upgrades. Almost. Sock is still down by 1 upgrade, all these fights. Mountain King a little bit low, but Mountain King is safe. And a town portal out. Again, reinforcements we see coming in, and the upgrade advantage coming in, so eventually Fortitude holds. Did he lose any peasants? He lost 1. Could have lost more, but he defended very well. And now we're getting to the late game point where really your late game win condition, human mirror, breaker mirror, it's getting level 6 Archmage. Mass teleport, that is like the ultimate, what I'm talking about, the ultimate initiative to be aggressive all the time. If you have mass teleport before your opponent, you can dictate exactly how the game goes. You can dictate when your opponent is forced to defend. You can dictate when you're forced to attack. You can do whatever you want. So really getting level 6 Archmage first is such a huge deal in this matchup. Nice bolt. Level 5 Mountain King advantage is nice for Fortitude, but not a huge deal. Of course, you know, a priest is going to die with 1 bolt regardless a lot of the time, so. Zeppelin is very good. Fortitude didn't rebuild his Zeppelin. Fortitude has a 13 supply advantage because he's been slowly winning these fights. He's had an upgrade advantage almost the whole time. Now he doesn't anymore. He had earlier level 5 Mountain King, which, you know, debate could be had. That is the better of, you know, that's a good level up. It's a good level up to get. And he's, of course, slowed down this expansion more than Sock has by still 700 gold. And he's going to do even more so Yeah, the web on the Zeppelin. Not too great. Still 10 supply advantage. Priest a little bit out of position. This all comes down to micro now. Water elementals should go in here. That's why there's some nice farms here. I mean, the water elementals can still get in, but the farms are pretty nicely done by Sock. Ping pong water elementals back and forth. Unholy and Mirror is pretty good, yeah. They both did get very good items, though, so the red camp's definitely not dictating. And I think even, oh, he doesn't do it yet. But. Nice bolt dodge. Very nice, actually. Yeah, there's also a marketplace on this map, so. Onk passed. 74 against 71. Defender's advantage, remember. Reinforcements. Reinforcements. But still, Sock is down by 15 supply. Because remember, he was down by 10 supply at the beginning of this fight. Level 6 Archmage picked up. Fortitude first. Sock's about to get it, but Fortitude's going to use it to get out. Which is very nice. Retrain to Blizzard. I think the main thing why keeping water elementals is good is to sort of throw them in the peasant line during these long fights. Especially in lower level games. Of course, these players aren't going to slip up. They're always going to have a priest ready to dispel. But in lower level games, if you throw a single water elemental in here, you're probably going to kill 3-4 peasants before your opponent notices. Especially, yeah, in lower level games. Especially. Mass teleport is great. Bolt. That's very important to do, is to run your Mountain King away. Well, the bolt's in the air. Invuln being purchased. Still down by 10 supply. Sock has been down by 10, 13 supply for a while. Ever since he lost this fight here and had to town portal out, he's been down by 10 supply. And then, of course, the creep jack here didn't help either. And now he's been struggling to get back up to even supply yet again. Fortitude has 1,000 gold bank. Would you rather not throw Blizzard on peasants? Well, that would put you a little bit out of position. Yeah. And of course, there's always Stormbolt, there's always Bash. And if you lose the Archmage, you typically lose the game. Neither player's lost a hero yet this game, do note. Oh wait, sorry, there was the one loss here actually, but it was immediately rebought. So one hero lost this game. Water Elemental in here, see? If it goes unnoticed, it can do some damage. Blizzard can be used in some situations, but in the most standard of games, of course not. By the way, Sock bought Endurance Aura. For some reason, I think that's a mistake because he wasn't on 80 supply yet, but he did buy it. 86 against 64 supply. And we're watching the beginning of the end, ladies and gentlemen. There's no militia to be called. Well, not much at least. No, there's none at all, really. Water Elemental killed at least one peasant, could kill a couple of more. The Mountain King on the side of Fortitude is much safer than the Mountain King on the side of Socks. Which is very important in the late fights. 81 against 68. And the cool thing is, if you have level 6 Archmage first, although both players do now have level 6 Archmage, you can just get out of the fight if it's a bad fight. You can just get out, you can totally dictate the pace of the game, but, you know, Fortitude has no reason to get out of this fight. No reason at all. No reason at all. There's a couple of militia that I was talking about. Could have been called a little bit earlier, honestly, but here they are. Here they are. $90 against 67 supply. Level 6 Mountain King. And you know, this seems like a crazy game, but this is pretty standard because we've had a lot of discussion in the chat about, you know, is it better to just disenchant these or dispel these water elementals? And these water elementals really do give a lot of experience, which is why these hero levels get so crazy. It's very typical. And also, if you're both expanding, you know, you're kind of forcing it into the late game. So it's not too uncommon, these sorts of super, like, it seems like super late game, but really it's only 24 minutes in. The main gold mines just ran out. And we're almost at level 7 heroes for, you know, on all 4 heroes. Messy loss of AM there? Yeah, absolutely. And GG is called. Bit of a crazy game, right? Bit of a crazy game. But pretty standard. Pretty standard. Both players expanded. And we really see that dynamic of just being first translates almost always into an advantage for the attacking player. Almost every time that somebody was first, was a little bit quicker, was the one being aggressive, was the one taking the initiative, they took a big advantage in that game. Calls Militia on the other end, yeah, his gold mine ran out. So there's replay 1. And that's just an example of a pretty standard game. It did go to relatively late with relatively high hero levels, but that's still pretty standard. Yeah, after losing all his peasants, it was a miracle he got that far. Absolutely. Absolutely. Any questions about replay number 1? In replay number 2, we're going to see a very aggressive player. We're going to see a very, very aggressive human player. We're going to see how that works out for him. I'm going to see like a blind rage of a human player. Important to stay hydrated, important to stay caffeinated. And it's also important for War 3 Booster to hopefully work in this next game. We're going to see. We're going to see. The heroes were reversed, but, you know, not even that big of a deal. What kind of tea are you drinking? Just green tea. Thorzane. Is Thorzane very aggressive in Human Mirror? I couldn't find any of this. I did find some European games, but we're just going to focus on Asian players today. So this next game will be Fortitude against Thunder. Michael's brother Michael on Concealed Hill. Who's very aggressive? Well, we just established last game that Fortitude, you know, although he made some nice aggressive plays, he was willing to play, you know, relatively passively. Thunder, on the other hand, is a very aggressive player. He's extremely aggressive. At least in this game, at least in the few replays that I saw of his, he was extremely aggressive. And let's see how that works out for him. Let's see how he does that, you know, how he maximizes his aggression, how his creep routes work out, how his timings work out, and what he does at all the stages of the game to sort of be aggressive. And we'll see if Fortitude decides to be, you know, aggressive as well or be defensive and how that works out for him. Let's see. Here's replay number 2. Boo, 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 boom. All right. Hopefully the heroes are on the right side. Here in the bottom left of Concealed Hill. You guys see what I did here? You see? The replay is 1's crossed out and replay 2 is red. You guys see? You like it? You like it? Pretty cool. In the bottom left of Concealed Hill, we have our red human. We have Thunder, our aggressive player. And in the top right of Concealed Hill, we have Fortitude, who we just saw last game. High-tech stuff? Yeah, man. I took one PNG off and put the other PNG on, and you shake it all about. Also, Lindfra with the 10 months. Appreciate it. I'm sorry if I missed any subs. Try to keep up with it. I try to keep up with it, but I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys. All right. So we talked a little bit on the last map on Northern Isles what the best creep route was. Concealed Hill is in an incredibly well-designed map. There's a lot of creep routes to do. There's a lot of nuance and variety in creep routes. But what's the most standard level 3 creep route on this map? I have my own idea of what the most standard creep route is, but you guys might have a different one. There is a, you know, it's a little bit counterintuitive what the most standard fast level 3 creep route is on this map. But what might you guys think? What's the best way to get level 3 Archmage here for both players? They start the farm before building the barracks just to space it a little bit better so you know that the spacing's all right. Orange-green shop. Very good, Ramos. Orange, Murlocs, Cobalts, Militia do Turtles. Perfect, Rhino. Perfect, my brother. That is the most standard creep route. And let's point it out a little bit clearer. As the footmen go across, what are the footmen trying to scout for? Well, we need to see if our opponent's fast expanding. And we also want to try to delay their creeping. So this is what Rhino's pointing out. You creep this. You take the item. You leave the militia to finish off these two guys because, again, we're trying to be as efficient as possible. A couple of seconds can make the difference. A couple of seconds can make the difference. So we're going to kill this, take the item, run straight up here while the militia finish that. Creep this. Run straight here, creep this. While we're creeping this, we're going to call militia to creep our turtles. Then we're going to be level 3, and we'll be on our opponent's side of the map. That is the most standard level 3, in my opinion. I think that's the most standard. There's also, you can creep the lab. Then you can creep like this. And again, you can call militia and creep this. That'll be level 3. There's a couple of options. There's also, you can creep this. Creep this. Creep this. Militia, again, is always an option to be called to the turtles. If you're going to call militia to split creep something, it's always going to be the turtles. So there's a few options. There's a few options on this map. And what are we trying to balance? Well, we're trying to get level 3 as fast as possible, while also, you know, maybe giving ourselves the opportunity to either defend our base or attack our opponent's base, right? So there's always these little nuances that we're mixing into our creep routes. And we're going to see what Thunder does, a very aggressive player.
A player's forces are under attack.
Footmans pass each other. Footmans? Footmen? TheoryCraft TV is raiding with 47. I appreciate you. Thank you. Boom, 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 boom. Both players taking their oranges first. Should see them grab the item and run straight down or straight up. They're being a little bit inefficient. See, you guys could be even faster than these players. Fortitude's going to run up and take his turtles. What is this from Fortitude? It's just a very defensive creep route. Very defensive. Thunder is going to do what we talked about, the most standard, albeit a little bit slow, honestly. A little bit slow. And as Hitman says, just because players are considered to be professionals does not mean they don't make mistakes. Right? Everyone makes mistakes. Right, Chuddy. Yeah, that's a very interesting point, for sure. And now, what Thunder is attempting to do, is be in as aggressive as a position as he possibly can be. Right? So, as we established before, the most standard route is to call militia here after you take this crab and come up here and do this. What does this do? Well, you're a little bit out of position to go to your opponent's base. Whereas if you do this camp instead of this one, you're that much closer to your opponent's base. And what Thunder is assuming that his opponent, Fortitude, is doing is the standard creep route. This guy, then this guy, then this guy, call militia, creep this. But, you know, Fortitude did a very defensive creep route. He did this, and he did this, and he's in position to defend his base, probably because he knows that Thunder's very aggressive. So Fortitude's doing a counter almost, if you will, to Thunder's very aggressive creep route here. My wife doesn't make mistakes, yeah. Even Happy makes mistakes. He makes the mistake of doing everything too perfectly, so he's so everyone knows what he's going to do, because he's always just going to do the best option. Kind of interesting, right? And this is going to backfire for Thunder, our aggressive player. But if it had gone well, it would have probably gone very well. As it stands, though, neither player is going to get level 3. Oh, nice, and the heroes are on the right sides. Good. So that was just a bug with the last replay. Sorry about that, but it is fixed now. The heroes are on the correct sides, ladies and gentlemen. No reason to lose footmen on this map. There's, of course, fountains. And we already established keeping your footmen alive is very important. So no reason to lose footmen. No reason to lose footmen. Okay, one's going to go down. Of course, Boots of Speed is going to help Fortitude secure. One of those kills is very nice. And as we've established, Thunder's a very aggressive player. So Thunder wants to keep his footmen alive. He wants to gain value with them. He wants to use them to do run-bys into the base. He wants to do them to pressure the expansion. He doesn't want to lose them. He wants to be able to use them for aggressive plays. Fortitude a little bit, happier to lose his footmen because, he's most likely going to be the defensive player. A little bit of an interesting creep calling militia, but we're in wacky territory, right? We're in wacky town now. We're in wacky town because of how the earlier creeping went. Text finishing, double towers, single tower, all standard stuff. 2 towers, 1 tower. Personal preference, right? Personal preference. What do? I build 2 towers. I like 2 towers. I like to double it up. Red camp pulled. Second footman potentially going to fall down. And again, this is good for Thunder to get the footman advantage because he wants to be aggressive. He's very aggressive. Fortitude trying to get level 3. Thunder, of course, going to get level 3 himself eventually. He could have called militia a while ago. So again, maybe a couple of mistakes. This would have been level 3 from these turtles. Would have been level 3. But Moot and Kingaroo on the way. Sanctum's on the way. And potential. If this is a level 3 Archmage, I would say there's some serious potential for this Archmage pressure, but maybe not the best option. Whereas on the side of Fortitude doing some pressure, he could do some damage here, but double Arcane gonna help out. But look at that water elemental position. Very beautifully done. Very beautifully done. Okay, level 3 was accomplished from these footy boys over here. Militia called. Ward placed. Lots of vision, lots of good stuff. What will this vision tell Fortitude? Well, he'll be able to see if there's militia called over to the expansion and when they're called over to the expansion. Right. Pretty cool. Both Archmages are level 3. Both Archmages have boots that can be passed over to the Mountain Kings. Another footman gonna fall. So now Thunder's starting to take the footman advantage in numbers, which, as we established, is very good for the player who wants to be aggressive. Might be another bolt. Nope, not another bolt invested. Both players trading everything. The Archmage of Thunder not quite in position. The Fountain wakes up, kills another footman. So what was once an advantage is now still a little bit of an advantage, but, a nice surround. Another footman falls. Still footmen, though. There's still a couple. But both players have essentially traded out every footman at this point. This would typically be the time when, most often you'll call militia and creep this and then go for your expansion if you're both playing very defensively. But, as it stands, Thunder has been constantly pressuring the footmen of Fortitude. So, this is the time when you'd go for the expansion. We should see the spell being researched. Or already finished. Maybe it's finished. But boom, it's finished. Red camp gonna be pulled. Nice little bit of value to be gained. Scuffs up the surround, so the creeping is not going well for Thunder thus far. The right ideas are there, but the creeping has not been perfectly executed. Expansion gonna be cracked. Militia gonna be called to get the red camp. Could be a nice aura. Could be claws plus 12. Is going to be Cloak of Flames. Terrible item. Good at killing peasants, though. Good at killing footmen. How many footmen are there left? There is 1. Maybe 2? No, just 1. Blacksmith coming up. Ooh, what does this blacksmith mean, ladies and gentlemen? What does this mean? What does the blacksmith mean? Let's go back to me. What does it mean? From Thunder. It could mean rifle, but in this case, it is not going to mean rifle. In other matchups, absolutely it could. If you're an orc player, you see that blacksmith, it's absolutely going to mean rifles. There's smithing to be done. Yes, Dragon Blue 666 says, Skip Expo, go ham. Absolutely, that's what it means, because we have already established, we can look over here. It's mirrored. We get our expansion, and then we put up our blacksmith for upgrades. If we see, as Fortitude does see possibly with the ward, it is daytime, so we might see with his ward that we pointed out earlier, the blacksmith, and there's been no expansion built yet, that means he's going to go ham. He's going to all in our expansion. You know, I only call it an all in because if you don't break the expansion and you don't have a counter expansion, you lose. Right? So it's an all in. It's an all in. So yeah, that's a tell. It seems like a really little thing, but that gives us all the information we need to know. If we scout a blacksmith and we don't scout an expansion, it means they're coming our way. They're going to throw, what do we say? The kitchen sink. The kitchen sink. And here's the kitchen sink.
A player's forces are under attack.
Expansion coming up, and then we should see a blacksmith coming up as well, but as we can point out, nothing quite yet. Soon enough, once the expansion is established for Fortitude. Red Camp nicely snuck in. Boots of Health loss, a terrible item on both sides. Mountain King might be able to squeeze out level 3 from this, but of course you do want level 4 on your Archmage as well, so. Might even be more important to get level 4 Archmage than it is to get level 3 Mountain King. Debate could be had. A debate could be had. Zeppelin purchased. And here we go. Worth noting that Thunder, even reproduced some footmen. Because we need to get this number of priests still. We need our 5-6 priests for enough to spell against the water elementals. We need the adept training. So we can't really occupy these arcane sanctums with breakers. So instead he builds footmen, which are decent against breakers. They do good damage. They take a little bit of extra damage from the water elementals and the priests, but they're still good against breakers. Militia's being called, a Zeppelin purchased, and a Shredder purchased. Here we go. This is as aggressive as it could ever become. It's you fool me once, you can't fool me twice. You can't fool me again. This is very aggressive. Very aggressive. You fool me once, can't be fooled again. All right, Archmage about to get level 4. Bolt gonna secure Priest. But there's breakers, but there's defender's advantage, but there's militia, there's an arcane tower about to get up here.
A player's force are under attack.
Why can't you counter expansion with a tier 3 tech? Well, you could in the long run, but you know, most likely your opponent's just going to break to 60-70 supply breakers and just push your main base before you get anything from tier 3. Typically what will happen. And trade, if you counter push and you trade an expansion for your main base, of course it's not going to be great. My favorite bourbon? I don't know. Does it get much more aggressive? But look at this. Look at this. The defender's advantage is accentuated mostly on Concealed Hill because look, this is how far the breakers of Thunder have to run. Ooh. This is how far the breakers of Fortitude have to run. Ooh. Much shorter. And the shop, right here. The militia, right here. Defender's advantage is huge on Concealed Hill. Huge. Huge, you might even say. Which is why you might argue that being an aggressive player on Concealed Hill is not always a great option. Maybe not the best map for it. What is a good map for it? Well, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Mountain King falls. Would it matter if the Mountain King's still alive? No. The expansion is not mining, but still, the army advantage is definitely here for Fortitude. And it's only a matter of time. So yeah, map should dictate whether or not, you know, to play this way. But Thunder's a very aggressive player, and he wanted to play aggressive, and it didn't necessarily work out. 3 footmen surrounded in the main base. Expansion is now mining again. Decent damage. But again, you know, even if this main base isn't mining, the expansion's mining. When the expansion isn't mining, the main base is mining.
Player's forces are under attack.
Shredder, ooh, does fall. Level 5 Archmage, though. Arcane Tower falls. Like, it's not bad damage, right? It's just not enough. You gotta do more than this. And you need your Mountain King to be alive. So it's not bad, but it's not what you need. It's not what you need. And as we can see, ba-boom. Not fully mining, not important. Peasants at the fountain, why not? Upgrades being pumped. You know, very big upgrade advantage on the side of Thunder, but he just doesn't have the army to back it up.
A player's forces are under attack.
Footman, putting in some work. Yeah, there's just nothing here. There's just nothing here. Footmen are going to go to the expansion, try to do a little bit of split pushing. Maybe if you can kill every single peasant, Thunder, do you have a chance? But, you know, Fortitude's being very defensive. He's being very patient. There's no time. You know, Fortitude doesn't need to do anything right now. He just needs to defend. He'll be on 2 base economy. His heroes are totally fine. He doesn't need to do anything. He just needs to chill. Yeah, the Zeppelin micro certainly could have been better. Nice bolt dodge. Couldn't have been better there, though. Peasants are falling, but it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter. Fortitude's just better, yes. But this is important. This is important to note. Fortitude is just better than Thunder. He is. That's a correct statement. But why is he better? Well, he's got better micro, of course. But he's also got better decision making. What was the better choice made by Fortitude this game? Expanding, being defensive, because the map is very good for expanding and being defensive. It's a very bad map to be aggressive. He also had a better creep route. He just pre-countered, he hard-countered the creep route of Thunder. He did a lot of things that were just smarter. Wasn't necessarily just, you know, better micro, you know? He did a lot of things better. Strategically as well. Very important. Very important.
A player's forces are under attack.
What about this map makes it bad for being offensive? Because your main base is so close to the expansion, and your opponent's main base is so far away from everything. Defender's advantage, as I've been pointing out. But Thunder is better looking. Thunder is better looking than everyone. Just the size of the map, I would say, makes this map poor for being aggressive. Yes, exactly, Thorzane. Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate it. Exactly. My man got my back. And it's the beginning of the end. Beginning of the end. Still an upgrade advantage, though. Still an upgrade advantage, as the aggressive player will so often have, but it's just not quite enough. Just not quite enough. Doesn't even matter if this expansion isn't mining. Doesn't even matter. Because eventually it will be. And eventually, Thunder's not going to be able to keep pressuring. He's even got footmen that he's been building. He's still building footmen. What a madman. What a madman. Don't worry, the pain will be over soon. Thunder, trying his best. And he's doing a dang good job, but not quite good enough. 55 against 40 supply, and this 40 supply even includes a couple of footmen. Well, I guess there's footmen on both sides. Expansion is mining. Zeppelin, not doing much. Could be used a lot better, as someone pointed out in the chat. Could have been used a lot better throughout, so maybe some mechanical errors, but also some strategical errors, most importantly from Thunder. Hero focus only win condition at this point? Absolutely, yeah. That would be a great option. Kill both heroes, maybe kill the expansion, maybe there's a chance to come back in the game. That would be the main thing. If I was casting this game right now, that's what I would say, to give the people hope. But as somebody who's doing analysis on this game, there's no hope. Against 34. A hero's about to die. Both heroes about to die. There's one breaker left. And we're just waiting for it. So you lie to us during a cast? I give you hope. I give you hope. Gotta have hope. Gotta have hope. Or the game's not exciting. A nice TP, a nice bolt dodge, and an even better GG. Alright, cool. So there's an example of definitely viable aggression, right? We've established that being aggressive, isn't bad in the first game. We saw some very nice plays, with aggression from Fortitude in the first game. But from Thunder in this game, definitely overzealous, definitely wasn't the proper map for it, and he definitely overcommitted to the aggression when he could have just done little bits. Right? Too aggressive, didn't have much reason for it. Just, as I pointed out before the replay, just a blind rage. Just a blind rage. Right, so there's an example of maybe, as I play in Human Mirror, a little bit too aggressive. A little bit too aggressive. A mistake that I very often make as well. Just too aggressive. Right? And of course, now we need to show the flip side. A player being very aggressive and being successful with it and doing it for a good reason. That will be our third replay. But we're going to take a couple of minute break. And we'll be back. We'll watch the third and final replay. Then we'll take some questions from you guys, because I'm sure you got a lot of questions that I don't have all the answers for, but I'll try my best. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you very much. We are back. Hello. How was your guys' break? You get water? I finished my tea. I saw my cat. Story continues. Okay. So now we watch 2 replays. The first replay showed a little bit more nuanced pressure from both players, actually. They both had map control at one point. They both had that little of, the tug-of-war edge that we're going to see very often. And they both had very nice, nuanced, calculated aggression. Then on map 2, replay 2, we saw Thunder being a little bit overzealous, being a little bit over-aggressive, and it really didn't work out for him. Now on map 3, we're going to see when aggression pays off and, what sort of details lead our human hero to this point, right? And it's going to take a little bit of some nice micro for it to work out in the end, but he's still going to be aggressive with purpose. Not just blindly, not just stylistically, but because everything in the game up to that point led him to being aggressive, forced him to be aggressive, and we're going to see it work out very well. So this third replay will be on Amazonia, and it will be Sock against Fortitude for replay 3. And then we're going to take some questions. All right, let's load in. Here we go. Replay 3, baby. All right. Amazonia. In the bottom left, we have Fortitude. He's also known as Romantic. He changed his name. It's Fortitude, whatever. One of them is named Sock. The other one has a name. Right, you guys will figure it out. Here he is. And here in the top right, our yellow human, as always, is Sock. my favorite player in the whole wide world, because he's so good. Again, just like we pointed out on Northern Isles and Concealed Hill, what's the most efficient creep route on this map? It is very cut and dry on Amazonia what the most efficient creep route is. I'm sure everyone knows it. Can anyone say it, though? What is the most efficient creep route to get level 3? Yes, exactly. Yeah, Thorzane. Very good point. Very good point. So the most standard creep route on this map is, of course, you go here, ba-boom, you go here, ba-boom. You go to the middle, where we find these cobalts, and then you'll also militia creep this at the same time. That'll give you level 3 if you get all these camps. What Thorzane points out, which makes this very interesting, of course, is you're creeping this while your opponent is creeping theirs at the same time, and it really comes down to, you know, can you stop your opponent while also creeping it yourself, or will you go aggressive on your opponent's creep because you're so close and sacrifice your own level 3 to try to potentially stop theirs? There's lots of options for nuance, but if you do just want to get level 3, it is very cut and dry what you're going to creep. But it's still very interesting. We'll see how these players decide to play it. The footmen going across the map, of course, we still need to clear the potential for a fast expansion, although we're most likely not going to see a tier 1 expansion on Amazonia, but it's still a possibility. Still good, and it's still, you know, again, you can slow down, you know, maybe this militia call in the future. Yeah, both players going to creep it up. Creep it up. Fortitude actually not footman scouting, which is a little bit interesting. But Sock, and Sock we trust he is going to. Let's pause and read this. If you are aggressive trying to stop him, you can tech faster because you don't have to upgrade your arcane tower and you don't need to make 9 peasants. But if you fail, he ends up being level 3 and you don't while you're in deep water. Very cool. Very cool. Right. Yeah, and that's very interesting because we've been pointing out a lot. The aggressive player has the potential, is how I've been putting it. They have the potential to gain an advantage as opposed to just being on an even playing field with your opponent. They have the potential to gain the advantage, but they also have the potential to lose more in trying to gain that advantage. And yeah, that's pointed out by Thorzane beautifully. Nice. Very cool. We'll see if there's any sort of exchange like that in the middle in this game. Level 2, ring. Very bad items for Sock. Very bad items on this side of Fortitude. Very nice. Right. Right. Very interesting, Thorzane. Very interesting. I don't believe this Cobalt pull was on purpose, but, you know, there is, you know, a little detail where you could pull these and slow down your opponent. Militia being called a little bit earlier for Sock, but he's already teching. Fortitude not teching yet, but he will be able to once he has enough gold. Neither player trying to stop the level 3. Both players just happy to get their own level 3. Because, you know, it is very risky, of course, to try to stop it. But what did we point out? Whoops, sorry. My observing not the greatest. What did we point out on the first map? All it takes is you to be a couple of seconds faster in this creeping. We see Sock again, just like the first replay on Northern Isles, being a couple seconds faster on his Cobalt creep. Literally this much faster, this much distance. But now what is this going to translate into? He's going to be the one who has the opportunity to be aggressive on the Fortitude side of the map. And all it takes is being a couple seconds faster. Although, of course, in this case, Fortitude has the double claws, whereas Sock doesn't have very good Archmage items. So there's a world in which Fortitude could just straight up win this fight because of items, and then he could be the one being aggressive. But also, Sock called Militia earlier, so he's going to have level 3 Archmage, you know, maybe 5-10 seconds earlier, maybe even 10 seconds with how much earlier that is. So it's going to allow him to probably be the one who's able to be aggressive. We'll see how it works out, though. See how it works out for him, Cotton. And there's level 3 quite a bit earlier. Quite a bit earlier. And it's not going to gain Sock any kills, but it will gain him the positional advantage, let's say. And he does have a slight tech advantage as well, but just you know, he's just a little bit more optimal, Sock. It seems, all the time. A little bit more optimal. Which is really what Sock is great at being. very optimal mechanically and strategically, knows his creep routes perfectly, micros everything very cleanly. That's really what Sock is best at. Boots of Speed purchase, but there's 2 pairs in the shop nowadays, so both players going to get it. But Sock still is the one being aggressive. Neither player attempting to creep something. You know, there could be potential for creeping this. There could be potential for trying to creep this, maybe, to get that level 4 that is oh so crucial in Human Mirror, but neither player going for it. They're both sharking around, and they both honestly probably could have tried to creep something already. Oh yeah, he did. I didn't actually notice that myself. Sock did buy a circlet as well. As he so often does, actually, buy items. Sock being the one to take the initiative, so he's going to be the one to try to creep first, try to get closer to level 4 Archmage first, but in doing this, giving up the map control that he got earlier by being a little bit faster at these Cobalts, you know, this, and he was here first, right? But he uses that instead to creep a camp early, and now Fortitude is the one who's able to be a little bit aggressive, but he's going to be down a tiny bit in experience. But still, potential to gain an advantage. He's on Sock's side of the map. He could kill peasants. He could cancel this Arcane Vault. He could maybe kill a couple of footmen. We'll see how it works out for him.
A player's forces are under attack.
But what Sock is doing, it's worth noting, what Sock is doing by creeping here, this is a guaranteed edge. Right? He's going to guarantee get this camp. The creeps aren't going to out-micro him. The creeps aren't going to outplay him. He's going to kill these creeps. He's going to get the experience. So, you know, if Fortitude is doing what he's doing currently, which is running to Sock's base, he hasn't crept this camp, so he is down on experience. So in doing this, Fortitude has to get something done here. He has to come out ahead here, or else he's just blindly behind because he's down 1 camp. So it's very risky what Fortitude's doing. But it has potential to pay off. Worth noting. Very little things, but you know, there's still potential for it to have a big impact. Cancels the shop. Gonna get at least 1, 2 peasants, probably. 2 peasants. So far, so good. Gonna get the tower, too. So this is very good for Fortitude, but he can't lose too many footmen. He can't lose too many 2 peasants, shop cancel, arcane tower kill. Loses 1 footman. He's going to lose 2 footmen. He's going to lose 3 footmen. There's number 3. So Sock lost 2 peasants in a shop. Fortitude lost 3, 4 footmen. Now I ask the question, was it worth it? Was it worth it? The Arcane Sanctums are going to be same time. Mountain King, same time. Was it worth it? It could have paid off. Maybe Sock's a little bit more out of position. Maybe Fortitude gets 5, 6 peasants there instead, delays the Arcane Sanctums even more, but he took the risk and it didn't really pay off. He's going to maybe even lose a 5th footman. Maybe even a 5th footman. Now Sock has 6. 6 of these bad boys. Again, both players just exchanging water elementals here. But I'm going to ask a question in a second. I'm going to ask a question after we check out this surround. There is a Staff of Teleportation. Can't use it now, though. Has to wait until the next bolt comes off.
The town is under siege.
Oh.
Players' forces are under attack.
Boom. Now Staff. Good. Now that we've seen this, okay, the Archmage does get out, by the way. Does go to the back of the base. But yeah, this is interesting now. This is interesting. So 4-2 got some damage, and I killed a couple of peasants, cancel the shot, kill the tower. Lost 4 footmen for it. This changes the game quite a bit. Because what can you do? What can you not do if you lose this many footmen? And Sock has lost 0 footmen so far. Fortitude's lost 4. So now Fortitude is not in a position to be aggressive if he desires to. Because he's got the smaller army. So he's almost forced into a position where he has to expand because he has no aggressive options. So he's pretty much got to expand blindly and hope Sock does the same. So then they can be on an even keel because he can't really pressure now because he's down so many footmen. He's down so many footmen. And his Archmage is low. He definitely has no potential for doing that. So the aggressive options are off the table for Fortitude. Right? They're off the table. And what's on the table for Sock? Well, he can do whatever he wants. He can go for the expansion, which would be the safer, more reliable option to just expand as well. But he could also be the aggressor because he's got the footman advantage. Pretty cool. That's all it is. He's lost footman. He doesn't have a big enough army to do anything. Pretty cool. So footmen are very important. Footmen are very important. They're not necessarily always just throwaway units. Nice peasant kill, though. That makes 3. Well, the aggressor changes depending on the stage of the game, MurvyTube. Oh, sorry, Serenity. It was the bot, it wasn't me. Changes depending on the stage of the game. So far it's been Fortitude who's been the more aggressive player. Because Sock chose to creep this instead of using his map control to maybe go into Fortitude's base. Whereas Fortitude used the extra time he had to go right into Sock's base, and then he lost his 4 footmen. Right, so it changes depending on the stage of the game. It's not always just one player the entire time, go, 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 unless you're Thunder. One camp, and then what do we expect them to do? Well, one camp, and then we expect them to normally go for an expansion. Call militia and go for an expansion. Sock got level 4 much earlier. He's going to be level 4 for a long, long time. There's the 5th footman falling. There's 1 footman left. Both players built 6 footmen this game, worth noting. Sock still has all 6. And now Fortitude is going to have 0. Militia being called. And he gets a couple of footmen. Now both players are in the phase of the game where they would love to go expand, right? They would love to go expand. Oh, boom. What do we see? We see a blacksmith. And as we pointed out on Concealed Hill, generally this means you're going to be the aggressive player. You're going to go for an all-in against their expansion if you go for a blacksmith early. So this is a very early blacksmith. And look at his gold. Sock can't really go for an expansion if he wanted to either way. Because he's got no gold. But weirdly enough, I think Sock actually does go for an expansion here. And I don't know why. Because all the signs point towards not expanded. But he's going to call militia. He doesn't have gold right now, but he will in the future. And of course, Fortitude doesn't have any other options, so he's going to go for it. But he's got the gold. He didn't build a blacksmith yet. He's going to, in 100 gold, he's going to have enough, right? He's got breakers already coming out. And I guess their gold is relatively even. So yeah, both players can expand. This is just a little bit weird, in my opinion, to go for this and then also go creep the expansion. Just a little bit weird. A little bit weird. Of course, he's not even getting anything out of it. He power built it with 3 peasants. He power built it with 3 peasants and he's not upgrading anything. So I don't know why Sock did this. Don't know why. Don't know why. I would say that just going for the expansion Pierre is always the best option. It's always the safest option. Level 3. The expansion was canceled. Because Fortitude did a nice little play here with the Staff of Teleportation. Okay, now the upgrades are being pumped. What is he investing into instead of this expansion? Now he's investing it into upgrades from that blacksmith that he built for no reason earlier. So luckily for him, he built that blacksmith, didn't get upgrades because he wanted to go for the expansion, but now the expansion is off the table because it got canceled. He's just going to go for the upgrades anyway. Right, so Sock did want to go for the passive option. He did want to expand. Despite killing so many footmen earlier, he wanted to go for the more reliable option because Sock is a great player who thinks he can outplay his opponent, and I agree that Sock is a great player who definitely can outplay Fortitude. Even, even if he has the option to be aggressive. But his expansion got canceled. He kind of got his hand forced. So now he's going to go into upgrades. There's 1-1. The blacksmith only now coming up, so this is going to be about a 2 upgrade advantage for Sock in the future. And he's going to come across the map and be aggressive. He also has the footman advantage. He's got Mountain King level 3, but there's Mountain King level 3 on both sides. No Archmage level 4 yet, though. Sock's so good he can look into the future? Yeah, maybe that's what this blacksmith was. It was him looking in the future saying, my expansion is going to get canceled, so I'm going to need to start pumping upgrades. I think it was a little bit weird. But that's all right. Things can't always work out in the replays to how I say they're going to work out. It would be great. It would be great if they did things exactly as I say, but it's not always true. And of course I'm wrong a lot of the time too. So maybe this blacksmith isn't always a tell, but it really, he didn't build any upgrades. He didn't get anything until the expansion got canceled, so he didn't build anything. Clarity on an Archmage, very weird, but water elementals are pretty good at this phase in the game. Expansion is up. The clock is ticking. And here comes Sock. Again, he's got the level 4 advantage. He's got the footman advantage. The supplies are even, though. But the upgrades are not. It's about to be 1-1 against 0-0, so... Fortitude breaks right away. He's got the defender's advantage. Yes, Grubby, but he power built it with 3 peasants. He power built it with 3 peasants. And then he went for an expansion without queuing any upgrades, which is why I say it was a little bit weird. It's 210 gold, right? 210? Something around there? Around 200? Trying to remember. Footmen, what are they good for? They're good for stuff like this, little split pushes. Yeah, was his backup option? I guess so, yeah. But this is a big supply deficit, though, so this is kind of rough. This is kind of rough. But he has managed to kill the peasants in the meantime, so at least he's evened it to 1 base, 1 base. But as I pointed out on Concealed Hill, doesn't always matter. But the supplies are evening up. The upgrades are still favoring Sock, but not for long. It might be 1-0 already. Okay, it is 1-1 right now, but it's about to be. The upgrades are about to start kicking in for Fortitude. 140 gold, 60 wood. Thank you. It's not a big deal, but it does end up costing about 200 if you power build it with 3 peasants. Here are the boys. But the expansion, not mining this whole time. Yes, exactly, Snot Bubbles, exactly. Killing the peasants is really the goal of this pressure right now. And then eventually the supply will even up because you've been consistently killing peasants. And now not only does Fortitude have to macro peasants as his expansion, but also units. And then you end up with a little bit of a supply advantage, but he's still down by 10 supply, Sock. So it's really more so Sock kind of out microing him here.
A player's forces are
A little bit, but he's killing peasants over and over again. He's killing peasants. And what advantages did Sock have going into this fight? Well, he had a couple of extra footmen. The supply was even. But he had Archmage level 4. He had better items on his Mountain King. We can see better items and a heal scroll as well. And he had 1-1 against 0-0. So Sock had some advantages going into that fight that weren't necessarily just supply. Right? There were more advantages than it seemed for Sock. But he also microed very well. Zeppelin, very good. Again, hero level advantages. Yeah, and that aura really paid off because that aura allowed for the peasants to die over and over again to water elementals, right? Yeah, and there's also Lionhorn, which is really nice. So actually a huge item advantage for Sock this whole time. And he had 1-1. Now he's got 2-1, but it should be 1-1. Okay, still a 2 upgrade advantage. So this has been a consistent 2 upgrade advantage for Sock. Almost a 3 upgrade advantage because the Devotion Aura is literally an armor upgrade. +2. Which is what the first armor upgrade gives you. Pretty neat. And this is obviously a much better map to do this sort of a push than Concealed Hill. Really good micro by Sock. Yeah, I definitely think it was partially the micro that won him this fight. Absolutely. He had some advantages going in, but that doesn't mean you're just going to win the fight right away. And GG is called. Pretty neat, right? Pretty neat. So there's an example of being aggressive instead of going for an expansion and it paying off. But a lot of things had to go right for Sock in order for that aggression to pay off. Which is why just going for an expansion is the much better option. Because we saw that Defender's advantage, that supply advantage, really, really helping out Fortitude there in a fight that he definitely could have won had the items not been good, you know, stuff like that. Explain a little how to micro. I'm not the best person to tell you that, but you know, generally it's a lot of positioning. It's baiting out Stormbolts from your opponent and then pulling your Mountain King back, because if you eat a Stormbolt and eat Breaker feedback damage on your Mountain King, it can be very rough. It's keeping your Priests back far enough, but in range to be able to heal the Breaker front line. And also, of course, dispel the Water Elementals. It's very much positional and baiting out that first Stormbolt and not taking a lot of damage on your Mountain King. But yes, you should be focus firing Breakers with your Breakers. You should be, yeah. Yeah, and then bolting and killing Priests when they're out of position, but also trying to bolt and focus fire Mountain Kings when they're out of position. Very much positional. Yeah, the Footman block was very nicely done. Yeah, so we watched 3 replays, right? One a little bit more nuanced pressure, one a little less nuanced pressure from Thunder that didn't work out, and then one sort of Sock being forced into a position where he has to be aggressive because his expansion got canceled like that, and it working out for him. But not like all Breakers on one Breaker. Yeah, because that would be sacrificing your position, because all the Breakers would be in like a line, and then you'd be focusing them on like a Breaker right here, and then all of a sudden they'd all go like that. So you want to maintain your position while also, you know, being able to focus the majority on one at a time. Yeah. Footies are good against Breakers too, yeah, which is another reason why they're very good to keep alive and not sacrifice all of them. Is it possible Sock predicted the cancel on Expo, so he power built the Blacksmith in advance to get ahead on upgrades if it was canceled? That would support my narrative, right? So I would love to say yes, because that would support the sort of narrative that I'm pushing in this episode, but there may be some detail that I'm missing. There could absolutely be something that I'm missing and I could have been wrong about. But yeah, that would support what I've been speaking about today. Because there's also one other detail there, that he power built it and then he did not get any upgrades until the expansion got canceled. As soon as it got canceled, he queued up 1-1 and went across the map. But maybe there's something I'm missing. There could certainly have been. Could certainly have been. Yeah. So what were my goals for today's episode? Well, one, to shed a little light on Breaker Mirror, which gets a lot of hate. Gets a lot of hate. Right? And I hope if you guys are just, you know, casual observers, you can maybe appreciate a little bit more of the nuance that goes into Breaker Mirror, because it is very complicated. And it's not complicated because of the units you're building or how the fights are microed. It's complicated because of these small nuanced decisions that people make. Right? And it's complicated because of these small 2, 3, 4, 5 second windows that you gain in early creeping or, you know, mid-game decisions that can then gain you an edge to be advantaged. There's lots of nuance that goes into Breaker Mirror. Not, it's not boring, well, it is boring for some people because it's very simple, but if you are appreciating the details that go into it, it's a lot less boring. So I hope to the casual observer you appreciate a little bit more, and I hope to the more advanced player maybe you learned something. Maybe. And if you're a beginner human player, then you definitely probably learned something about standard Breaker Mirror. Any questions, though? Any questions? Maybe he was like, I power build blacksmith, so if my expos cancel, I instantly make upgrades. That definitely could be it. That definitely could be it. And that was a very good play by Fortitude to cancel it, to cancel the expansion. Because he forced Sock into a position that isn't really optimal, but it worked out for Sock. We actually made it over 2 hours. That's incredible. Going into today, I only had 3 replays. I was like, oh, it might be a little bit short, but I guess an hour-long intro will do that for you. I think he power built so he could send the militia off if needed. That could definitely be, a reason. So he builds the blacksmith so the militia are available to be called to the expansion. Absolutely. Yeah, you like my wolf shirt? Yeah. This was my grandfather's shirt. He had a lot of wolf shirts. Very cool, right? Very cool. Yeah. Panda is an option. Yeah, so Panda would be the most aggressive option. Yeah, pretty good. But Panda's more typically used in Tier 1 expansion games. So if your opponent Tier 1 expands and you tech to go into a standard game, you'll typically get a Panda early on Tier 2. We saw that in Chaemiko against Sock. Chaemiko against Fortitude on Echo Isles from DreamHack. If you go watch that replay, the replay packs were released on their Twitter. Game 2, Echo Isles, Chaemiko against Fortitude. You'll see Chaemiko get a Panda early on Tier 2 to pressure Fortitude's expansion. You're casting at ESL. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I might have missed a question. Seems worth the gold more than making units. The upgrades? Absolutely, yeah. Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad. Does Panda viability fall off once mass breakers are out and it robs of its mana? Yeah, Panda is the worst of the two options of Mountain King or Panda. We've also seen kind of Alchemist a little bit lately, which of course isn't the most standard. The thing about Panda is when you get to the super late game, it can be pretty good because of course it's good against buildings. So if you get into like these base race situations or when you're both, typically if both players are being aggressive, Panda's better than Mountain King. Because in killing peasants and killing buildings, Panda's very, very good. But if one player's defending and one player's being aggressive, the Mountain King is better at defending. It's better in straight up fights. Right, so the Panda has better stuff. It's better at killing peasants and buildings, essentially. Is Naga an option? Naga is an option, I would say, in Tier 3 games. Is typically where you'll see it. At the moment, Spanish Monkey Donut, just till January, we're going to do the show. Just till January. So it'll be like 50 episodes. So it'll keep going. But who knows? I might run out of ideas by the 50th episode. So, but we'll see. We'll see how long we can go for. Because I would never want to do an episode where I'm just sort of making it up as I go. I always want there to be replays that I can watch and I can be like, okay, this is what Sock is doing, and then give my opinion on why I think he's doing those things. So I never want there to be a situation where I have to be like, here's my replay I played on ladder, guys. Look how great I am. I want there to always be top level replays that I can watch and I can talk to you guys about. So when that runs out, then the show will be done. Right? Just water elementals. Yeah, keep up with the water elementals. There are nuanced situations that some people have been talking about in the chat where you'll go for Blizzard. Typically, again, early expansions, you'll see Blizzard. So if your opponent goes Naga on Tier 2, you want to scout more for Tier 3 tech? Most typically, yeah. Yeah, that's where I've most commonly seen Naga second is with Tier 3 techs. Blood Mage used in ranked games? Yeah, Blood Mage is used all the time. Not always in Human Mirror. Sometimes in Human Mirror for some specific reasons, but on Terranus Stand, Echo Isles, you'll see it when there's Mountain Kings on the field, but not an Archmage Mirror always. Anything else? Any other questions? Did anyone in the chat change their mind about Breaker Mirror, or do the people that hated Breaker Mirror before still hate it, and the people that like Breaker Mirror before still like it? Did anyone change their mind today? Doubt it. I doubt it. Haters gonna hate. Fiend Mirror, Breaker Mirror, meh, all the same. Yeah, could see that. I'm not the biggest fan of Undead Mirror myself, actually. Maybe I gotta watch some replays. Yeah, right. That makes sense. That makes sense, chat. gotta rewatch this before I change my mind as a human player. Yeah. All right. So for next week, we're gonna have community replay review, as we've done twice already. This will be the third one. I've got a bunch of replays that have already been sent to me throughout the month. But of course, if you guys want to get your replays reviewed, you can put them in the Discord. If you go to backtowarcraft.com, you can find a link to the Discord. You can also find it on my Twitter. If my Twitter's right there. You can find it. And of course, you can email me at carson@backtowarcraft.com. So that'll be next week. Same time, same place. But for now, that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.